Alrighty, so I think we're live, we're going. We're not live, but we're recording. And let's see how this goes. I apologize if you can hear my computer fan. It's just that my laptop is ancient and me trying to do this, playing a video and recording myself at the same time, I hope you can appreciate, has been quite the puzzle for me to figure out and get to this point. So to start off today, we want to keep the energy clear, keep things respectful, knowing that we could be getting triggered, also entertained is the important thing to remember here. So for entertainment purposes only, we shall have a look into what's going on in the Christian YouTube community that involves Doreen Virtue, which my witchy and spiritual friends here are probably going to recognize that name. Because she did definitely stir the cauldron a little bit when she decided to leave the spiritual community back in 2017. So yes, let's just clear the energy there. This is a sage stick that I actually made myself from my garden sage. Okay. There we are. What we are looking at today is a video that is by The Church Split, okay? And yeah, I downloaded the video, so we're just going to watch it together, and then if I feel called to pause it, I will pause it and comment. But this video is really long, and it's like 2 hours long, and it's only part one. So there's a lot to dive into here. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue. I'll just see how interested I find this. To be honest with you, it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine to sometimes dip into a little bit of Christian TikTok. No, Christian YouTube. I wouldn't dare go to Christian TikTok because that place is just ruthless, I think, from what I've seen. I tend to avoid it. But you know what? Some Christian YouTube stuff and podcasts I can really enjoy. And the reason for this, even though I am a witch, oh gosh, I do really resonate with the message of Jesus and, you know, his whole message, his whole thing, the love thing, the heart-centeredness, the selflessness, this beautiful Christ consciousness energy I really resonate with. I've had experiences with both, spiritual experiences with both Jesus and Mother Mary. So naturally, I enjoy watching some of the more positive Christian stuff, even though I'm not about the Bible necessarily or the religion. Religions just freak me out and don't like the idea at all of religions, and I don't really like it when people make like witchcraft religion-y. It's very gatekeepery. So like the whole, you know, when we sometimes think things can get a little bit gatekeepery here in the witchcraft and tarot community, like you have no idea, if you have not looked at Christian YouTube, like the amount of arguing that goes on there in general, because there's so many different types of Christianity and they all disagree with each other. So there's just a lot of debate going on. And now we're seeing that, once again, Doreen Virtue is stirring the pot now with the Christians. So we know she left our community back in 2017, and, you know, she really tried to tear us down, apparently devil worshippers over here. Even though, like, the work that she did was literally, like, only with angels, so positive, so love and light. it'd be interesting if I could, maybe we could watch her testimony together or something and just go through that. I know it's a bit old news. So that's why we're starting with the good stuff, the new stuff, right? So basically what I've gathered, because I haven't looked too much into it because I thought this would be fun to do a video on, but she's been slandering this like well-respected guy, a scholar, Dr. Michael Heiser, and he literally died recently. Seriously. Like crazy. I can't believe it. Like the audacity, you know, wait a few years before you try and tear the guy down within, you know, the community. So let's just get into it. Basically, these are two other Christians commenting on the video that Dorian Virtue put out that has triggered the fuck out of everyone. Okay. So it's kind of funny to watch her doing the exact same thing that she did in the witchy and spiritual community, now again in her new group, which are the Christians, but they're not having it. All right. So let's see what's been happening. So yeah, I need to actually get the video in here.
That just shows your dedication. You're working with what you got. So, I mean, you did good with it, but it's time.
Hey,
this is the big leagues now, right?
Exactly. I have to. I hit over 6,000 subs, so let's go. My tiny little baby channel. All right, but joking aside, so now, Derek, you have been kind of on a tirade of late about this very issue, and can you just go ahead and give us a little bit of an explanation of your background with Heiser, the Dorian Virtue, and like kind of all that stuff?
Yeah, so I've been a fan of Heiser since, gosh, I don't remember exactly, but if I had to wager a guess, we're talking like 2011, like early days. And he was just one that spoke on a level that just really appealed to me because super mega nerdy. I thought he was the most boring teacher there was at the time. Like I was used to listening to like pastors and stuff. So then I get to Heiser, I'm like, wow, he's really boring, but it's like fascinating at the same time, But then, from there, he started growing. His podcast started taking off. He started writing the books. He got the YouTube channel. And so as his ministry grew, like I was listening and reading and taking in his content more and more. And, I was on what brought me to him originally is I've been on the Genesis 6 fallen angel view for a long, long time. And he was just like another scholar to add to the credibility of the view that I was holding at the time and frequently arguing about online. And so, yeah, that's where that started. And, I've known Doreen for, I don't know, probably 6 years. I think since she was like a baby Christian. I haven't like known her personally. I have had very minor interactions with her. But a lot of the ministering I do online is with ex-New Agers. So she was a huge voice. She had a huge platform in the New Age, and then she came to Jesus, thank God. And, we're obviously very thankful for that, and is using that platform to witness to New Agers. And I celebrate that. And I've seen her work like on Facebook and how she ministers to them, and she does great stuff. So this isn't like me having a bone to pick with her personally. Like I just despise, it's nothing like that. Like I can look at where she is valuable to the body of Christ. However, I've also seen that with some of the associations she's had, got really into discernment, and I think even crosses the line into heresy hunting. And, looks like Heiser became one of the people in the crosshairs. And so whenever, watching this video, I was just absolutely stunned. Just like some of it, my jaw is like hanging open. I'm like, there is no way this is real. Right. Like, because I'd seen her and Melissa Doherty had an interview with him on her channel. And then she had another interview with Heiser later. And I'm like, you should you should know better than this. Like, what is this? You know? So yeah, a tirade is pretty good. That's a good way to describe it. I've been angry, you know, and it's not
just had to pause there for a second, because my lover came in, but let's continue. There's not really much to say. You know, you can see that originally, you know, before she came out with this statement, the Christians were all for Doreen. You know, they was loving that she was influencing maybe more people to come from the New Age community over to, you know, transition into a Christian, I guess. Let's see what they've got to say.
You know, they're gonna chalk it up to like Heiser worship and cultism and stuff like that. It's like, this is straight up lies. And
the worst part about it is that he has passed, and so with somebody who's made such great contributions and they have passed, and then you slander them in such a way, or what seems to be slander, yeah, it's very frustrating. And there is a such thing as a righteous anger. And so I've seen all the hubbub. Like, I saw Faith on Altar and quite a few other people doing responses to what I've said. And so in the backstage of Will's life, June and August have been the two busiest months of the entire year for me. And so I was in Colorado doing mission stuff and all sorts of stuff. I was on the planes, I was everywhere. And so I was like, man, what is all this going on? So I finally sat down, like last week, I think. I was like, I'm going to start listening to this stupid video that everyone is referencing. I'm missing all the hubbub. And what I messaged you, I think 5 minutes into the video, and what, Derek, this is terrible. And you're like, yeah, this is why I've been upset. So this is kind of the approach of what to expect in this video. I am a person who believes that, yes, you could take a 3-hour interview that they did and snip out your favorite parts of it and do a really slick edited video. But the problem is, I don't think that's very thorough, and I don't think that's going to be the type of response that this sort of thing deserves. Part of me wonders if there's a 3-hour video on this to almost prevent that type of sound biting. So what we are planning on doing, and I don't know how committed Derek is to the full thing, but I am committed to do a response to the entire video, going point by point, playing the video and actually responding. Same way I'm doing with the debate review. I was not planning on doing 2 big responses like this back to back, but this is the way it's going to have to work. But I will have you know, I am a fan of Heiser as well. And this is one of the things that they will gaslight you in this, and that's what it is. I mean, it's just like I hear all the time, like, Heiser fans are really cringy. They're just really XYZ. Very, very frustrating to listen to, because it's just the fact that, no, I'm okay with people disagreeing with the Divine Council worldview. There's actually some parts that I'm still on the fence on and how even Heiser interpreted things. But I want an honest dialogue that actually talks about the true conclusions of a particular view, not full-on misrepresentations. And just so everyone knows, yes, I have read his works. I have them right here. I have underlines and everything else in them, because I am one of those people who marks up his books, and I've been told that's heresy. It might be, but it helps me reference things quickly. So I think one of the biggest problems here, now real quick, you said before I get into my problems with some of the people in the video, before I watch it and respond, why is it that you minister so much to New Agers? Is there a particular reason to that? I know you have in the past, because you turned me on. I did a response defending Heiser a few months ago, and I think it was you put me onto that as well. Why do you tend to swim in those waters?
It's actually, I didn't mean to. It's just kind of something that just happened. I became an administrator in this really big Facebook group back in 2017. It was called Reasons for Jesus. It was a group that a guy named Stephen Bancars, who was a huge New Age, and I had disagreement.
Bible is not like, if you read his books.
Okay, this video is
slander and or just pure ignorance.
And I think the reason why there's so many people who loved Heiser was also because that most people.
Okay, so I am sort of getting the impression that they love this Heiser guy, that he's basically brought some really interesting new thought to the community. He's looking at the Bible in a different way. He's like super educated. He studied Hebrew, I think. And, you know, like he he's really well studied and referenced, you know. He's not just talking out of his ass, like seems very logical. So he's really inspired a lot of people even to join the religion, because they're like, wow, this is a much more open-minded approach. And this one issue that seems to be the biggest issue that Doreen Virtue has with Heiser is that his belief about the divine counsel in one part of the Bible. So you're going to hear them reference this divine counsel issue because Doreen strongly doesn't believe that this statement was referencing God and the other beings, the divine council, the angels, and that it was just God who created humans. It's so like silly, because no one is disagreeing that God created humans. That's not what Heiser is saying. He's saying that before he created humans, he kind of turned to the divine council, the other angels, and was like, hey, I want to do this, you know, what do you guys think? Let's hear your thoughts on this. And then he went ahead and created humans, right? This is what the argument is about. So let's just understand that that's what this whole thing is about. This she was so upset about this that she felt the need to make this an argument at such a tender time. So this is where I feel like it was really inappropriate. Otherwise, I feel like fine, they're doing this all the time in the Christian community. They're always arguing different beliefs with the different sectors, right? So what the issue is that she's choosing to try and tear this guy down, this guy Heiser down, right? When he's very recently died quite suddenly. He was only like 60 or something, so he's still young. So it's not like an easy death to accept. And then it's only, I think, it's not even been a year, I don't believe. I haven't looked into it, just from the way people are talking about it. I think this is what's the most upsetting thing, is she is trying to bring his reputation down, you know, at this tender time. So we can see this is where a lot of the you know, the conflict is coming from here.
Would not be comfortable asking, and I think that's what we ought to do when we're actually truth seekers, is we need to be willing to ask. When I now, Derek, I'm not speaking for your view on this, but I will promote real fast. My book is finished being edited, and we're working wrong. Bible is not always the only way. That's not a lexicon, and it's not.
This video instead is an expression of concern about the effect that some of his teachings are having on some of the body of Christ. So, by the way,
I will say this already. It does come off more like a hit piece, whether she says that or not. Like, it's not a personal attack on him, but
right. Just keep listening and we'll let you guys judge that. Like, hold on to that one.
Yep. Just remember this. I just want you to understand the very beginning here.
Such as there are some professing Christians who seem to be developing an almost science fiction-like extra biblical obsession with Nephilim, giants, demons, conspiracy theories regarding Genesis 6. Some are even boasting about having a divine council worldview, and they call it DCW, right, and it seems to be like this cliquish club of people who.
So Heiser has a name for the view he holds, and people who also hold it, like, say they hold it, and they abbreviate or they give it an acronym for it for short. Like, how dare they? Right?
Yeah, I know. Well, that was the tone, right? And they call this DCW. There is there's this overall tone throughout it where you're like, is that wrong? Like, having a divine council worldview. Actually, and here's the thing: is like she's already like framing this in a negative light, but what Heiser talked about, Heiser said this all the time. He's not an originator of any of these views. He's like, I'm not original enough of a thinker. He even like said something almost like that, like almost like verbatim. He just said that he's a compiler. That's what he describes himself. I take all these views from history and scholars and I bring them together, which is why when people say that all scholars agree XYZ, is that's not true, because he actually, like, if you read his books, you can see all the footnotes. He has like monstrous footnotes, by the way, from time to time. Like, yep, right there's a bunch at the bottom of that one. Like, not all scholars agree. And so, yeah, I guess I don't understand what her point is here, but you already just tell the tone.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, she's talking about like an obsession with these things. It's like, well, any view can be taken to an extreme, but what, like how are you judging this? Like, has there been a stat that you're reading this from? It's like, oh, all these people are doing this. It's like, are they though? Like, yeah,
and this whole idea is, and her idea of, I think what she's getting at with the science fictioning of this and giants and stuff is the fact like Nephilim, their children or their whatever became giants, or maybe the Nephilim were the giants. And like, that's not science fiction. That's actually been theory for a very long time, and even church history. Like, the giants came from somewhere. So people try to find ways to explain how the giants came from somewhere. So again, it's just an innocent bad label. It's already a bad faith interaction with people when they're trying to figure this out. And it's okay to ask the question. So anyway, is there anything else you have to say there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know who else, like, other than Christians, gets really into giants and Nephilim and all those conspiracy theories about that kind of stuff? New Agers. New Agers get really into that stuff. Ancient aliens, like all that. My buddy was an atheist, and he was like, what do you guys do with aliens? You know, and it wasn't Heiser at the time, but the kind of explanations that Heiser gives won him to Jesus, because he's like, oh, okay, the Bible does account for these things, right? And so she frames it as though it's a bad thing, but it's like, she's an ex-New Ager who ministers to ex-New Agers. Like some of them get into this stuff. Are you going to have an answer for them? Or are you just going to say, well, my Sunday school teacher said this, you know, like, what are you going to do? Right.
And my very rigid one view only of how this works must be the answer.
Yeah.
And no one.
But that is the issue with Doreen in general teaching, because she is very close-minded, very fear-driven, and that she did have a lot of disdain in her voice when she was speaking about this group of people, the fans of Heiser, right? And so I feel like fans is kind of, it would more be students or follower of his teachings, right? But yeah, so there's just like this weird tone, and they picked up on it too. This real strong like distaste for this guy, and who we know used to be a friend of hers, or was a friend of hers. She has been on his YouTube channel and him on hers. And so this already is rubbing people the wrong way, just with body language and tone of voice and choice of words. With Doreen, she really loves things to be in a box, and she's like very scared of anything threatening like her belief system. And it just shows that, you know, there is like this, she's a very gullible person, I guess, and because she feels like she's been misled in the past. I don't know, when I look into her energy, I feel a lot of confusion. And, you know, I should probably look up her numerology chart. It would be interesting to see what's going on there, but let's continue.
Someone else's view. So it's already a bad look, and we're 49 seconds into this video. And so that should tell you, remember, it's not a personal attack though. I'm going to say that a lot.
Wink, wink. They understand the ancient Near Eastern interpretation of the Bible through Michael Heiser's lens. And instead of hermeneutical principles that have us interpreting extra biblical texts through the lens of the Bible, there's also this concern that...
Okay, I got to stop on that one. So her point is, because when she's talking about extra biblical texts, is the fact that Heiser pulls from the Book of Enoch and other Mesopotamian writings to interpret the Bible is her accusation. But this is what we call good exegesis. This is going, what did those words mean during that time? When someone used the term like sons of God, what did that mean? Did other people in that region use that phrase? What did they mean by that phrase? It's not that he's using all these other things to interpret and putting that lens over the Bible. Is that the Bible seems to be saying these things, and these other things say it too, but these other writings say it more clearly. Oh, so when it's talking about sons of God, it's referring to some sort of spiritual being of some sort. And this is actually very normal, because the Bible, especially Genesis 1 through 11, has a ton of polemics against pagan culture. Many people pointed out the flood narrative that's been in Assyrian cultures, the creation narrative. The whole point is not only a temple creation text, but also to say that, hey, these celestial objects aren't things to be worshipped. They are created by the worshiper, not the one to be worshipped. And so it's not the celestial objects to be worshipped, it's the creator to be worshipped. Like, there's all these things going on there. So she's just, again, flat out misrepresenting what that is. And that is, good exegesis deals with true historical inquiry.
Yeah. And I mean, because they promote this hermeneutic called the historical grammatical method of hermeneutics. It's like, what do you think that means? What do you think the historical aspect of that means? How do we know that history, right? Or even the grammatical. You know, we'll get into Ugaritic later, but I mean, that helped with us understanding the grammatical aspect of many things in the Old Testament Hebrew. So it's like, yeah, these are helpful. Exactly.
So, all right. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and move on. But just that right there, when I first listened to it, I was just like, are you serious? So we're not supposed to do that. Also, Roddy was wondering if she was a Calvinist. You know, she's a Calvinist.
She is. She has said she has said
they don't do historical inquiry.
She has said before, like, it's not a matter that she's going to promote primarily or divide over, but she also has a video defending Calvinism from misunderstandings. So you can take that how you want.
Yeah, I'm sorry. As soon as someone says they're a Calvinist, I instantly question their exegetical capabilities. But all right, I'll go ahead and move forward. I'm going to catch so much heat from this, I can already tell. Play.
Michael Heiser's theosis teachings is being a catalyst for some professing Christians to enter into the works-based false gospel Eastern Orthodox Church. I first met...
Hold the phone. I'm sorry. I got false gospel theosis. So theosis is wrong? That's been a pretty strong historical teaching. Now, I think there's different people take it too far. Yeah. I think I've definitely heard some weird versions of theosis. But theosis, like, overall, like the idea of becoming like one with God and God one with us has been a pretty good teaching of the church. But then she calls the Eastern Orthodox a false gospel. Last I checked, they still preach the resurrection of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of sins. And I've actually talked to Orthodox priests, like have multiple meetings with them. And I was asking, like, how do you believe in salvation? And they're like, very clearly it's by faith. But she might be talking about the fact that they attach works to it because they actually believe in synergy. But I will say I am an open synergist. I don't do the whole monergist loophole thing. But
that made up dichotomy.
yeah. I'm like, I don't care. The Bible actually uses the word synergy, like in Greek. So I do not care. Call it what you will. But the idea that, exactly. Orthodoxy does not believe in work salvation. I get so tired of everyone claiming that everyone else believes in work salvation. It just drives me crazy. Like, well, you're misrepresenting it.
Well, you know, if we're hearing it from Calvinists, everybody believes in works-based salvation except Calvinists.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, just the fact that she labels that to Eastern Orthodox people when Eastern Orthodox Christians are strong believers. I know many Orthodox strong believers, and I just find that to be just an absolute defamation to them. And like Joshua Sherman, our mutual friend of ours.
Oh yeah, I had him in mind.
Yep. Also Tyler with Faith Unaltered. They're Orthodox. Like, anyway, it just drives me nuts. Like, don't to call people, to accuse somebody of a false gospel and a false teacher is a very serious accusation.
Well, yeah, she just threw millions of people out of the kingdom.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not buying it. But anyway, okay, moving on.
Met Michael Heiser in 2000.
Okay, so it's literally bombs going off left, right, and center of everything she's saying, because by offending Heiser, she's offending majority of Christians by the sounds of it. I never heard of a Calvinist Christian before this, and I did look it up, and it seems that they are like just very close-minded group with very, I wouldn't even say old, but just, yeah, very conservative, strict beliefs. And it's interesting that she's decided to go this like route with her religion, and go so strict and really be put in a box. And there's some kind of like, I get this feeling, this energy of self-punishment going on with Doreen. Like, I don't know, it feels like she's still holding on to like a lot of guilt or something's going on there. Tell me what you think. But let's continue.
2018, when he sent me all of his books and a donation. And I got to know him over correspondence until April 2019, when he flew me to Dallas to appear on his Pop 321 TV show that's on PureFlix and also YouTube. And while I was there in the studio, Michael Heiser gave me.
It's Fringe Pop 321, not Pop 321, as she said. And it's actually I would recommend people go subscribe to Fringe Pop 321, because Heiser does really good work on that channel. It's like got like 150 videos, and it's debunking New Age teachings and other like conspiratorial stuff, the very stuff that Doreen opened this up with, saying that she, implying that she doesn't want people to get into. Heiser's debunking all that stuff to bring New Agers and ancient aliens and all that stuff, like the truth of the gospel. So.
Exactly. I just wanted to quickly, Jasper sent and said in the chat, think of the Orthodox people have been persecuted by the Soviets for the sake of Christ. I just wanted to mention that to her Orthodoxy comment. I read a book on the history of the Orthodox Church last year, and it was just like what they have gone through and like how base some of their priests were. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can call that. And also Amber said a great thing. Faith and works are not opposed. In fact, isn't that what James says? So I don't know what she means by false gospel, but maybe she means baptism, and their view of baptism is far more complex. And there's a lot of mystery thrown in Orthodox churches because they actually don't make as many positions as even the Catholic Church does. And they do that on purpose. But anyway, all right, we'll keep trucking.
A pre-publication copy of his book about demons. Then Michael Heiser and his family moved from working at Faith Life Lagos in Washington State to Florida, where he became the supernatural seminars teacher at the very controversial Celebration Church in Florida. And while he was at Celebration Church,
have you looked into that church at all?
No,
I did a little bit, and I will say that I don't know what she's saying by extremely controversial. I'd have to have her flesh that out, but she kind of just leaves it there. An explanation would have been nice, but
well, which is like highly controversial. I'm like, shoot, what's controversial nowadays? Like, do they take a stand against LGBTQ issues? Because that's controversial now. Like, I don't know.
I would say that the feel I got from watching a couple of the sermons was, to be fair, they were a little in that seeker sensitive kind of pep rally motivational. Like they kind of leaned that direction, but the other part of me is just like, so what? So Heiser goes in there and teaches like this really great biblical content for those people who need and want it. Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Say, oh, they're not good enough for us to, send somebody there to teach the Bible. It's like, if you see what I'm getting at, though, it's like if people,
if they're a seeker friendly church and they hire a scholar, like that's actually probably them going, yeah, we notice we have this weakness, so we need more of XYZ. I work at a multi-site church, and we are the quote unquote seeker friendly church. We our mission statement is literally helping those, like creating a Christ-centered community to help those far from God trust and follow Jesus. Like we are the apologetic seeker friendly church. We're seeker friendly, then we bring apologetics into it. But like they hired me specifically because they're like, you're a theology guy, we need that. Like I don't know. Plus, even who cares? Like I don't know. I don't know what the issue is. I need to know. But she just, again, this kind of starts
It feels like she does have some kind of issue with the seekers, and I get the impression this is people who are not like converted yet, but they're interested in the religion, showing interest, seeking wisdom and comfort and, you know, solace or whatever it is, and information of whether they're going to fully convert, I guess. And is that why she's judging this church? You know, because they're controversial, they're just probably a bit more open-minded, I'm guessing. Yeah, it's really interesting that, you know, Doreen wants to preach to the choir, it seems. You know, she's not really interested in anybody who shows any kind of different beliefs, ideas, thoughts to hers. So yeah, it's interesting as well that she didn't like choose to debate this with Heiser himself at the time. And that is, I think, what's really rubbing everyone the wrong way here. But let's continue.
This is where she's like, this is not a personal attack on Heiser. Then why are you mentioning where he goes to church? Why are you mentioning where he got hired? Why it was so controversial? There's just a lot of like, it's not a personal attack, except for the fact where we're making this personal based on his personal decisions rather than his ideas.
Right. She's painting a picture right now. And it's
exactly
a very unflattering picture intentionally.
Exactly. It's purposely trying to frame it. So, all right, we'll keep moving. But this I've never known Doreen ever. Like this is my first exposure to her. And I'm not going to lie, how she has 362,000 subs. I'm just like, one, how, two, I'm not impressed at this point. Like I'm actually at the point where I'm like, ew, like I don't like the fact this person has so much influence just because of this sort of thing. Like, I don't know, maybe her other content's better, but this just gave me a bad taste in my mouth. All right, let's keep trucking.
Schedule was so busy that it was difficult for him to continue hosting his Pop 321 TV show. So he asked me in 2020 to be a guest host of his TV show. And we had a lot of correspondence with his producer and his director to come up with episodes and guests and topics for episodes. And we were just about to do this until I realized that I was not the person to co-host his show. So I bowed out, and he was very gracious to accept my resignation. I interviewed Michael Heiser twice for my YouTube channel, but I have since changed his interview videos to a private setting because I do not feel like they are something for public viewing. I also promoted Michael Heiser's teachings in my book, Deceive No More, and also on my social media. This was before I truly understood what he was teaching. And I was dazzled by his
Okay. For the record, you still don't understand what he's teaching.
I was going to say, she says, this is before I truly understood what he was teaching. It's like, you don't. You really, like, I don't even think we need to say it. Anybody who knows his content with even like just a passive understanding they'd be able to call that out.
Right. In fact, I met a pastor at my mission thing I mentioned in Colorado. I met him, another missions pastor, and he's like, I just found Michael Heiser Red Unseen Realm, and my brain broke. And he was going on about it. As he started explaining it, you could tell he was kind of new to it. So he did explain it in the most eloquent of terms. And one person looked at him and goes, "Sounds kind of like Mormonism." And I was like, "Nope, let me jump in. This is what the difference is." It goes, "Oh, that's what it is." And then the pastor was like, "Yes, that." And I'm like, there you go. Don't worry about it. Like, you just got to be careful the way you word things, because people like Doreen get out of control with it if you're not careful. So,
that's right.
All right, let's go ahead and move.
Resume and his education. I finally had my eyes opened, and I have to admit that Michael Heiser fell off the pedestal for me when I interviewed him for my YouTube channel about his demon book, and Michael Heiser exegeted that Genesis 1:26, the famous passage of "Let us make man in our image," that was a plural about God and the divine council. And Michael Heiser said that wasn't implying the divine council was involved with creation, but he said that was God plus the angels. And this I knew this wasn't true because Genesis 1:26 had been such a pivotal passage in my life before and after salvation. And
so she says,
but also, did you see, like, oh God, the disdain in her face when she mentioned the angels? Because this is the problem with Doreen in, and that's what's triggered her. This is the trigger point. The trigger point is giving any kind of grace or power or any part of the spiritual journey, like giving any of that over to the angels for her for some reason is just so triggering, because we know that Doreen actually had the gift of being connected to the angels when she was in the New Age community. So where she now believes that these angels that she was communicating with before, which we have to dive in to Doreen's actual personal journey in another video, because it is interesting, because now she believes that these angels that she was communicating with were devils. And I know just from the one deck I have with her, she's not connecting with freaking devils, demons. I might be wrong, not devil, demons. So now her hearing this Heiser guy sort of giving credit, to the angels is just demons. This guy must be also about the demons. I'm being deceived again. Like, this is where I'm seeing her thought process go, and you can just see that fear trigger. You can see it when she mentions the angels. Let's continue.
He fell off the pedestal because of what he said regarding Genesis 1:26, and I'm just like, why did he fall off a pedestal? Why couldn't it have just been like, I don't buy that one, but that's okay,
I'm not with him on that part.
Yeah,
like I'm friends with Dr. Jonathan Pritchett, right? So him and I are buddies. We hang out. He said he was going to jump on the stream for a minute, and he didn't. So I hate him. But anyway, him and I are friends. And what's funny is that him and I don't always agree. And you know what happens with him when I disagree with him? I go, I disagree. Anyway, what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah,
that's what I do.
Or even
like a man.
Even sometimes you'll battle it out live on Biblical Rogues Gallery, and then afterwards you're like, "Hey, have a good night, man."
Love you, buddy. Yeah, it's like you can have a disagreement, but this is the part of the problem.
Yeah, so she definitely does take it really super personally. Like she takes all this stuff personally, and she has to live in this echo box, it seems, and this echo chamber of everyone who thinks the same, acts the same as her, believes the same. And there's this channel that she's created, which I also want to do a video on, because it's a lot, but she's created it with these other two women who got saved from the New Age, right? So, and it's this Get Saved from the New Age YouTube channel that they've created together. And she's done a lot of videos with these women, and they're really dragging down the witchy and the New Age and the spiritual community, tearing it down hard over there. So she doesn't like that. She's obviously hearing a lot about these Heiser fans. Sorry, losing my voice a bit there. Yeah, so this is her new trigger, right? People bringing up this guy because this guy triggered her when he came on her show and started talking about the angels, making her have her angels means demon trigger. And this is where I see it's happening. It's a completely trigger response, trauma response, completely unconscious emotional stuff going on here. And anyone who sees energy, reads energy, or childhood trauma, or has all the understandings of the shadow work, you're seeing this is her shadow coming up here now, and she can't escape it, right? Because she hasn't done that shadow work. And one thing I really noticed about Doreen's spiritual journey when she was in our community is she had so much fear of anything dark, any kind of shadow work. She didn't want to face it, and she was always terrified of demons, the dark, the shadow. And she obviously has spent her life completely avoiding any kind of darkness, shadow work, and it's created like so much trauma going on here. And yeah, so you're seeing this again replaying, because you know what happens when we don't resolve our shadows and our trauma is that we replay the same pattern throughout our lives. And I'm seeing this is a pattern that's consistently now happening within Doreen's career. She builds herself quite high up within her career and spiritual community. So it's like connected, her career and her spiritual belief system. And then she's, you know, basically tore it all down and had a big fall within that belief system and that community. So are we about to see another big fall coming for Doreen? Is she going to fall outside of Christianity and move on to something else again? You know what? I really wouldn't be surprised, because we're seeing this same pattern. She's built herself right up until she's now people are turning against her. And one thing Doreen really does is another trigger for her is you know, people, any kind of conflict, people turning against her. She takes it all very personally. So the other place in her life, as I saw mentioned in a different video I watched about this, was apparently she has been married 5 times. So the fact that, again, she's obviously in her relationships. You know, I'm speculating here, but it looks from the outside anyway that she's repeating the same patterns in her relationship, and then that's why she's ended with these 5 marriages. That's 4 failed marriages at least, right? And again, she's having a repeating pattern in her life. It just reeks of like undealt with shadow work, right? So let's keep that in mind. Definitely send in prayers to Doreen. Not like happy with her behavior, because it's really not nice what she's done to this Heiser guy. It's very offensive. But at the same time, I am seeing in her energy that this is all definitely a trauma reaction. And she does have a lot of stagnant energy around her, where energy is not able to flow, and that can be very hard and difficult to live with. So definitely having compassion for her on that side of things and seeing that she is trapped in these patterns. But the thing is that we can only help ourselves. So when you realize it's the Fool card, right? It's the freaking Fool card. You just have to let go and face it, okay? Understand that you can't be always in control. Let's continue.
With like the Calvinist circles, if she really is a Calvinist, it seems like this like certain dispensational circles or certain like circles that's like one disagreement means everything crumbles. And it's not okay. And just so everyone's aware, Genesis 1:26 is a very popular "Let us make mankind in our own image and in our own likeness." Just so everyone knows, it's the "let us make," and we'll talk about more of that later when her guest comes on.
Well, and she said, She said, I knew this wasn't true because Genesis 1:26 had such a was such a pivotal passage in her life after her salvation. And, you know, I heard that and I'm like, so what? Like, just because it was a pivotal passage to you doesn't mean you correctly understood it. Right.
Right.
Like, that's what she said. I knew that wasn't true because it was such a pivotal passage to me after, like, shortly after my salvation. And so I'm like, well, that doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So wait, is this true? Virtue is selling Oracle cards on Amazon? I don't know if that's true.
No, she used to. So anything that's being sold in her name is no longer like her doing. So
okay, gotcha.
That's what she was really into. That's what she was known for. Got her platform. She was really into Oracle cards. But yeah,
gotcha. Okay. All right, cool. All right, let's keep moving.
I asked Michael Heiser to repeat this because I wanted to make sure I understood him, and he repeated that the Elohim of Genesis 1:26 referred to God plus angels. No. I've also heard him say it's God plus.
No.
Yeah, that's actually not.
He did not say that.
In fact, Can we? Do you mind? Can we play that clip? This
Yeah.
is a good time to probably play it.
Very good time.
Hold on. Let me go to.
Have to pause it one moment while I go toilet. Okay, we're back. Let's go.
Stop. All right, let me go to present. Sorry, give me a minute, guys. This is really important because she took down this video. But she only put it on unlisted, and we got it. So this is actually what he says in her unlisted video. So keep in mind, you have to just take her word for it at this point. But I want you to see for his own, in his own words, what he actually said. So he didn't say God plus angels created. That's not the way he words this in this interview. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to do this, I did it in the spirit world. They're like me too. This is why we get the plurals in Genesis, and the humans are now.
Can I stop you right there? So you mean
Sure.
When it's talking about we will make them in our image?
Yeah.
Isn't that the Holy Trinity speaking right there?
I don't think it is. If that was the only passage that had that language, you could probably get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to, let me just read you something in Genesis 11, because here's where the other place in Genesis where we get the same language. This is the Babel story. So this will sound familiar, but just pay attention to one little feature here. Verse 5 says, and the Lord, it's in all caps, so it's Yahweh, Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of man had built. And the Lord, Yahweh said, behold, they're one people, they all have one language. This is only the beginning of what they'll do. In other words, God created humans to have creative power, to do stuff, okay? So he knows what they're about, because he wired them for this. Nothing that they propose to do now, will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down. Wait a minute. He's already down. He was down in verse 5.
Mm.
So if the us there refers to the other members of the Trinity, shouldn't they be down too? Because that's where he is. You see, you have a bit of a conundrum there. You have a.
And is it the same Hebrew languaging?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, God, what's really going on is God is speaking to other members, the heavenly host, angels, if you will. So we need to go down there. We're going to confuse their language. And then what does he do? He allots these territories to them.
So that begs the question, were angels involved in creation?
They weren't, because if you go back to Genesis 1, and here's where a lot of the, if you'll pardon me commenting on New Agers to the expert here.
Yes, please do.
This is where I'll use the word, this is where they're deceptive. Okay. Because if you go to Genesis 1:26, God essentially walks into the room and says, hey, I have a great idea. Let's make humankind in our image, in our likeness.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the creation happens, it switches back to singular
Mm-hmm.
language. Okay, if you read verse 27, so God created man in his own image.
Mm-hmm.
In the image of God, he created. It's not plural. It's not they created. In the Hebrew, they're all singular. In fact, every place in the Hebrew Bible where you have any verb of creation with God as the subject, it is always singular.
Mm-hmm.
There is no ambiguity here.
So he was brainstorming with them.
Scholars would call this the plural of exhortation. Let me translate that for you. Let's say I walk into the room and I say, hey, let us go get pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, it seems like a good idea. So we go to the pizza place I choose in my car. I pay.
Mm-hmm.
I pick the toppings, but you all get to eat. Okay. So I want you along for the ride, so to speak, but I'm the one who's actually doing what needs to be done here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have going on here.
What do you say
to creation?
Okay, what do you say to people who call that the like a covenant, where there was the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit all talking about their plan for creation?
Yeah, I would say you run into problems both in terms of the plurality, both in Genesis 11, and I'd also wonder why God needs to have the conversation with the other members, because they should already know, because they're simultaneously omniscient and eternal. In other words, at what point did they need the information?
Okay, and I'm not asking this to be argumentative. I'm genuinely curious. I'm still learning and growing.
You'll see this kind of discussion, yeah.
Okay, so how does that connect with John 1 prologue of God speaking through Jesus, and even Colossians 1, where Jesus's role in creation?
Well, Jesus is the Son.
Mm-hmm.
He is God in flesh. He is the agent of creation. So I don't think that violates the singular creation that you see elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible, even in Proverbs 8, where wisdom is cast as the co-creator. I have on my website, thedivinecounsel.com, if people are interested in the wisdom topic, how this relates to Jesus and how we don't have a gender problem, and a multi-creator problem. They can go up and read that. So
You're muted.
I think we get the idea there. Thanks, man. Right there, that she says, I asked him, were angels involved in creation? And he said yes. He literally says in this episode right here with her, she goes, so were they involved in creation? She goes, no. And he uses the pizza example. They're along for the ride.
Yeah.
Like, hey, come on, let's get pizza. And you bought it, you paid for it, you got it all served, but you're there eating and enjoying it. So he's going, let us make mankind in our own image. And then he does it. And he's like, watch this, guys. Like, that's kind of the same idea. So she is blatantly misrepresenting him. This is this is not a, oh, agree to disagree on how the conclusion was. This is not, and he spoke in no uncertain terms there. So this is slander. It's just not true. And we're not talking about like a logical outflow either. Like, God decrees all things that come to pass, and you bring up evil, therefore the logic must follow. This isn't even like a reduction or a reductio, if you will. This is just twisting his words. Derek, you have thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you said it pretty well, but also she mentioned that he said that Elohim was God plus the angels. He did not say Elohim was God plus the angels. We're talking about the verbs that were used there were plural, but the verse starts out with God, Elohim, said to them, let us, right? So Heiser has never said Elohim means God and the angels. That's not even close to true.
Exactly. All right, so we'll go ahead and keep playing, but I just felt like this was a great time because the fact that she says that with such confidence and by the way, we're 4 minutes in? And the amount of misrepresentation you already seen. Framing is everything. She started the framing. Now, she talks about how they were like friends, and this actually was actually kind of breaking my heart a little bit when I was listening to it. I was like, dude, you talk about like how gracious he was, but you're not showing him the same grace in return. Talk about how he's like a good friend, and then like you do this. It's just it made me feel it just made me feel icky. Like, there's people I disagree with all the time, but there's a certain point, like I have purposely not done responses to certain people because I know they have passed away, and I'm like, probably is a little tacky if I do that, like especially if they were considered a good person, right? So all right, we'll just keep moving.
The divine council, the other so-called gods. Michael Heiser would argue that Genesis 1:26 is not about the Holy Trinity, because to say that would be to impose the New Testament on the Old Testament. However, that's the only exegesis that makes sense in biblical theology, seeing the whole Bible as one arc story of God's.
It's the only one that makes sense? How is it the only one? No, there's like 3 different views on the us. There, I'll listen real quick. I was going to get into this later, but you have the Trinity view, her view. You have the divine council view. And then you also have another view, which is the royal we. And I'll be honest, I am somewhere between like the royal we and divine council. I'm leaning toward divine council, but I'm also like, it could also, there's a possibility that it is a royal we, or as right here, a plural of respect as well. Like it could be something like that, like a king, like like that's actually what how Jews have read it for a long time as well. And so it's not the only thing that makes sense. There's other ways that you can interpret it. It is a very debated thing, and it's because Genesis 1 through 11 is actually probably some of the most complicated, beautifully written poetry of all time. Like it is incredibly complex. And so it leaves people asking questions, and that's kind of part of the point of it. So, and also she says it's like, because that's like imposing the New Testament into the Old Testament. No. The people who don't believe it's the Holy Trinity, one, don't need the Holy Trinity be dripping off of every single time that there could be a possibility of the Trinity being expressed. The Trinity is expressed in many other places far more blatantly. Also, yes, we do sometimes have to be careful about not imposing New Testament revelations that are new unto the Old Testament text. It's like the amount of times people say that there's Christophanies in the Old Testament, like that's a Christophany. That was Jesus when it could have just been an angel. Like drives me crazy because like you don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Anyway.
And she said that it's the only one that makes sense in biblical theology, seeing the whole Bible as one arc story of God's plan of redemption. I have no idea how Heiser's view of that verse contradicts the arc of the plan of redemption. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. That's a complete non sequitur.
Exactly. 100%. So, all right, I'll hit play.
Plan of redemption. After that interview, Michael Heiser and I kept in correspondence. And of course, as you know, he tragically passed of pancreatic cancer on February 20th, 2023, 1 week after his 60th birthday. And we miss him. He was a great guy. He was, as I said, very gracious and generous.
So
but his teachings are his legacy, and we need to take a look at some of these concerns. In this video, I'm joined by Marcia Montenegro of Christian Answers for the New Age and Don Vino of Midwest Christian Outreach. Both Marcia and Don have bravely confronted Michael Heiser's teachings in blogs through their ministries. Don, Marcia.
And that blog was terrible by oh my goodness, what's her name?
Marcia.
She just said it. Yeah, like these blogs are terrible. Like that's not bravely when it's terribly misrepresenting. They're not good. I did a response to one of them on the channel. You can find that a few months ago.
Marcia and I conducted 4 interviews with 4 concerned scholars and pastors for this video. Dr. Wave Nunnally, who's a continuationist professor emeritus of early Judaism and Christian origins, and who has a resume and Hebrew teachings in Israel that are on par with Michael Heiser's resume, since the biggest pushback we ever get is that, oh, you don't understand ancient Near Eastern teachings. You don't understand Hebrew. So we're bringing on Dr. Nunnally, who does. Marcia, Don, and I.
Okay, first off, I do want to talk to that real fast. It's because a lot of people don't understand how exegesis works by looking at the historical stuff. And it also, I know she's trying to like show just how impressive Dr. Wave is, but it's also I don't believe in appeals to authority, and maybe some people have brought up Heiser's credentials, but I don't think I've read that, like heard that as much in response. Have you, Derek? It's possible. I'm sure it's out there.
Usually it's more that Heiser is pulling from scholars is what people will say. Not that, oh, Heiser's so great. It's, hey, he's pulling, like he's not making this up. He's pulling from scholars. So it's more like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Just want to make sure I am accurate.
I also interviewed Pastor Gary Gilley and Dr. Jordan Cooper and Pastor Samuel Farag for this video. These 4 men have all bravely and boldly confronted Michael Heiser's teachings because of their concerns about the effects that these teachings are having on some professing Christians. And I say bravely and boldly because we have found that Heiser's fans are vehemently against any critics of his work. This is almost like an idolatrous cult when we are dealing with his fans.
The slander continues.
That is awful. Like
an idolatrous cult. So, first off, no Heiser fan that I know of, maybe some of them, but the ones I know were completely cool with people disagreeing with it. I actually know that some of this divine counsel stuff is like a hard pill to swallow. So I don't even like push it that much when I'm preaching or teaching. Like I just don't, unless I was talking specifically about that topic.
I don't think it's that brave or bold, to be quite honest, especially whenever it's like he's not here anymore. Like I think it'd be more, I don't know, brave or bold would describe it, but actually going to him and interacting with him personally, like asking him questions possibly, like I would like
also
to know if that happened.
And the amount of people that disagreed with him even before he died, like the amount of times I'd hear people like bash Heiser, just like you hear still people bash NT Wright. Like that happens. It's not that brave to speak out against somebody that you just disagree with theologically. I do it all the time, like at least once a week on stream.
Well, and look at me, like it's like I can go on to Twitter and call out stuff that John MacArthur did with his ministry, like running cover for a child molester, or I could talk about, oh, James White's The Potter's Freedom is a garbage book, or R.C. Sproul's, Chosen by God was pretty juvenile and unhelpful, or it's like I can do that, but I don't think I'm brave or bold for doing that. I think I'm just some dude on the internet just speaking my opinion. And it's like, yeah, I do get people who come at me, but it's like what I'm doing is I'm saying publicly, like I'm saying something publicly about somebody with a huge platform. So yeah, their fans are going to come in and defend them. That's what they do. Like that's not like cultism.
Right. This is literally how the internet works. It's just like if we're Roddy here making a hilarious mockery. You mean like Calvinist, Doreen? Like an idolatrous cult like Calvinism, Doreen? Calvinist cult, Doreen? Like, because it's the same thing. Every time I make a video disagreeing with James White, I get all the NPCs in there defending him. I expect it, but I don't call it like an idolatrous cult just because they defend it. I call them NPCs because they spout the same exact points every time and don't understand a word I'm saying when I respond. But then there's Calvinists who actually are good faith like interactions that I enjoy because we're actually talking about the real issues that they're hearing me and I'm hearing them and we're getting somewhere in the conversation. So
the irony is that Doreen is the one who's acting much more cult-like, very close-minded, very exclusive club, the very rigid beliefs. You know, it's projection, another show of the lack of shadow work that she's done and all the trauma, riddling her energy field. So she just is, continuing to put the dagger in and twist, right? Because everything she's saying is just another layer on top that's offending the majority of the people, who were before this video in support of a lot of what she's doing, even though, so much of what she's doing, in my opinion, was pretty problematic. The way she's talking about the spiritual and New Age community in her other videos is still very problematic, but that's from my side of things, my opinion. But the fact that she's even doing it within her own community now, and the thing is yes, there's a lot of debate within the Christian community, but the thing is that she's offended people, the broad community here. So let's continue.
Anyway,
well, and I think that's just with that. She probably doesn't even mean to do it, but I think that's a form of gaslighting where it's like, oh, you're just defending him because you kind of worship him. It's like you can't just accept that somebody would have an issue with him. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. I remember Jeff Durbin did that with William Lane Craig one time. He called him out publicly and got a bunch of backlash. And he was like, oh, I guess touch not my anointed. And it's like, that's not what it was. You were wrong. And people called you on that. That's fair game.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's just I'm sorry, if you're a public figure, you open up for public responses. This video can get a public response to. You take that responsibility when you jump into the public sphere. If you don't want to deal with that, don't jump in the public sphere. No one makes you. So whatever, it's dumb, but all right, we'll keep trucking. Idolatrous cult. But remember, Heiser was so gracious. If only she would do likewise. All right. Okay.
So I just want to say, if you are currently a Heiser fan who holds a divine council worldview, I pray that you will watch this video with an open Bible, be like a Berean, Acts 17:11, and please be open to another way of looking at Heiser.
And of course, the underlining tone here is that because you don't read your Bible, that you're not a good Berean. Because I'm sure that when people read this, and when they read this, and when they read this, they had no open mind, no open Bible, and never considered being wrong in the first place. There's a reason why when Heiser's Unseen Realm came out, it broke everyone's brains. I remember people were talking about that forever. Still are talking about it because people were like, "Oh my gosh!" Now that I'm actually reading the Bible here, in this parts, and now I'm seeing the the culture was, the cultural milieu that this stuff was written in. Oh my gosh! I think he's actually got a point. So the underlining assumption here is that apparently, if you're a Heiserite or a Divine Council worldview holder, you don't read your Bible, and you're not a good Berean. I hate this sort of thing. Instead, I say this all the time. Hey, if it's new to you, I just ask that you approach it with an open mind and dig into it for yourself and let me know what you think. You know, like that's an honest way to go about it, but not hinting that people don't read their Bibles.
And Acts 17:11 does mention that the Bereans received it with readiness of mind. And so, but it sounds like in her case, she heard his view of Genesis 1:26 and immediately he fell off the pedestal. So it doesn't sound like she received that and then tested it, but, you know, just kind of went from there.
Exactly. All right, we'll keep moving on.
Just teachings. Well, we're honored to be talking with Dr. Wave Nunnally. He has a MA in Hebrew language from Jerusalem University College, a master's in Old Testament from Reformed Theological Seminary, a master's of philosophy and PhD, doctorate in Hebraic Cognate Studies, Jewish backgrounds of the Bible from Hebrew Union College. His dissertation was on the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is very salient to today's topic.
Okay, so obviously that video now is going to go on where she's talking with the whole group and everything, and that video goes on for ages. We're already over an hour, so I'm definitely going to stop here, although I'll probably, you know, finish finding out, watching the rest of the video and finding out exactly what's gone down and what's been said. But what we can see is what I mostly wanted to touch on was the fact that once again Doreen's done it again, pissed off everyone, and this is a pattern that's happening with her because she's avoiding the very thing that's her biggest fear, which is any kind of darkness or shadow, even her own darkness and shadows. And the issue is that she's not looking at that, and it's sad, but at the end of the day, she needs to start taking some accountability, and maybe this is going to be something, the catalyst for her to actually have that mirror and look at herself, right? I'm not sure if I'll do anything on Doreen again. I might do, because it's something I do find interesting, and especially because I have that crossover for me personally, where I'm interested in people who want to talk about Jesus and his message and Mother Mary, because I have that connection. But I am still 100% witchy, a witch, a pagan, and I still can be open to the love and the message of Jesus. And that's what's so nice about being open-minded and open to receiving whatever comes in spiritually that's for your greater good. And that's one thing that is sad about the Doreen case, is that she was putting positive stuff out there. She was channeling very positive messages that were connecting with people and helping people on their own spiritual journey. She was being of great service to the world, very positive, full of light, but somehow she's taken that work and made it this demon work, this, you know, demon influence. And again, I feel like that whole angel/demon trigger is coming up again for her to confront. And there's also something else. Apparently, as that video goes on, the other drama I was seeing about her is that she's sort of changing her own testimony. And so maybe if something like that comes up and I find more information about that, and I can find a shorter clip so that we can touch on that. So this has been a bit long. I wasn't very organized, but I do think we've touched on the main heart of the issue, and maybe this wouldn't have come up in your world because, unlike me, you're not like tuning into that part of YouTube ever. But if you are interested in, you know, Jesus and Mary, but you are also a witch, there is lots of awesome like Christian witch content out there that you can enjoy, and even just taking what resonates with any content, right? It doesn't matter. It's good to be open-minded and take what resonates for you, so that more good can come in, right? The more open you are, the more good you can receive. And this is the issue with Doreen, is she's so scared of being open because she's scared of the bad coming in. And the truth is that she's focused on the fear. So more of the fears are coming to her and showing up, trying to suppress those shadows. It's not possible because we're seeing this repeating pattern. And so really hoping and praying for her that she will see this shadow and finally face those demons. But they're not demons. It's just aspects of herself. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.